Today, the centrist candidate for the first round of the election, François Bayrou, will give his choice for the second round, but is unlikely to give a vote indication for his supporters. It will be probably like Marine Le Pen earlier this week. The extreme right leader said that she would cast a blank vote at the end of the week, but she asked her supporter to vote according, depending on their conscience. She didn't give any official recommendation. So let's wait for the announcement from François Bayrou a bit later today. With that, I send it back to you.
Sounds good, Stefan. Thank you very much for that. Well, still with us here in the studio, Yannick, Yen and Klaus. Yannick, how much of an impact are we going to see on the markets, if any at all, if we see a power shift? We were just talking about that before the break, and talking about how we hadn't really seen a reaction in the bond market auction today. Equities?
There could be two impacts. There could be an impact on credit market or on equity market. In terms of bond market, we're not going to have a big auction for quite some time now. What we had today was one of the biggest, and we will have to wait quite some time. In equity, there could be, we saw that for the first round, the equity market went down quite a lot when Hollande was the first for the first round. We could have the same kind of effect. I think what we're seeing today on SocGen, which is issuing quite okay numbers, the equity start to rally, but now it's going down again. So I think on the equity market we could have a bit of pressure.
Don't you think though that once whoever gets into power, they'll just be faced with the harsh realities of real life and will have to push ahead with whatever it takes to keep the economy on track?
Yeah, it's very possible. I mean, historically in France it's been the case a lot of time, but if you look at the example of Spain, for example, the government of Rajoy was elected pushing for an austerity package, and he did say the truth. He did say that there will be austerity measure and some other measure. It's very strange that in France both candidates are not doing this.
Yeah,
it's a good point. That historically in France, presidential elections, there's a lot of rhetoric, but they usually don't follow through on it. I think the one difference this time, it's always difficult to say this time is different, is that they really had a lot of rhetoric going on, and they've gotten fairly specific on some measures, and they've also steered away a lot actually from economic reforms, etc., etc. So I think the big discussion that the German prescribed austerity is not working is, of course, okay, but then what exactly is France proposing here? Because hiring tens of thousands of extra civil workers will not exactly go down well in the bond markets either. If you're looking at market gauge, I think the bond markets are still the key guide here. The equity markets have not really been the good measure, the good gauge for this crisis. You want to look at the crisis and where it is, look at the bond yields.
Klaus?
Well, key for me is the relationship with Merkel as well. I think France and Germany in some sense has to stand together no matter who becomes president in France, and it will matter because Spain, in our view, is going to need help very soon. So, and that will require a joint French and German response, no matter who becomes president. Now, from a market point of view, surely you'd probably see a positive reaction to Sarkozy and a negative reaction to François Hollande in terms of yields and equities, but that will taper out, in my opinion, quite quickly.
Yeah, I think I'm more interested also in kind of the social shift that seemingly has happened across Europe, where you've seen kind of a big shift away from the socialist powers that have been in power, or the socialist, it's called ruling parties that have been in power, much more towards centre-right, and you just kind of wonder whether or not this is going to continue, or whether this is just kind of a bleep given the recessionary stage that we're in.
But at least in the last few weeks we did see an austerity backlash. I mean, whatever was coming from France, whatever it was coming from Holland, Netherlands, with the far right, wherever it was coming from Spain, which wanted
Spain, Portugal, Greece,
exactly.
Holland.
So it would be very interesting to see how Angela Merkel will react to that, because so far she's the only one trying to protect austerity measures.
I'm not convinced that the austerity backlash is that convincing, to be honest. When I was in Madrid at the beginning of the week reporting on the May Day protests, I mean, yes, people are turning out into the streets and they're waving their banners with no cuts and all the rest of it, but it just seemed to be lip service to the topic to me. We didn't see in Spain 25% unemployment, 50% of young people out of work. We didn't see people going and smashing bank windows in and the kind of things that we've had in Greece, for instance. It seemed to me like annoyance, but not something that's going to cause a revolution in any of those countries?
Well, 500,000 of Spanish people are set to leave the country every year for the next 10 years, according to some statistics. So they might not be unrest in the street, but people are moving away to try to find some jobs.
Voting with their feet there, in essence. I think you're onto something here. As in, I think 2 years or 3 years ago, if you had forecasted what would have happened, you wouldn't have said what happened in the streets. Everyone would have said the massive demonstrations, public life would come to a standstill. That hasn't happened. Well, I think one of the big discussions that's currently going wrong in Europe is that we have all this austerity, but it's all of the wrong type, isn't it? It's all tax increases, VAT increases, etc., etc. The labour market reforms, the reforms that need to enhance growth, taking on the vested interest, that's not taking place. That's the really difficult battle, but that could be where we really have long-term positive prospects. If so far austerity comes down to mostly some cuts in spending and tax increases for the most part, I'm quite worried about that.
Yannick, as we mentioned, I mean, you are standing for the Movement Démocratique, Modem Party, right? Sister party to the Liberal Democrats.
Yes, exactly.
But as you're standing for all the expats, basically north of Paris.
It's MP for Northern Europe, so it's all the French people living in UK, Ireland, Nordic country and Baltic country.
And I know that you're calling for free schooling for French people's children who live outside of France in that region.
I mean, there is some help from the government, but there's not enough help in terms of the cost, but in terms of space available.
It kind of goes against austerity, though.
No, it's just that right now most of the money is spent subsidizing very, very specific type of action, and we think we can allocate better the envelope.
Okay. Yannick, thank you very much. We have Fed Rashidi, one of your counterparts, who's also running on Monday. Yannick Naud, the portfolio manager of Glendevon King Asset Management. Yannick and Klaus, you're both staying with us. We're lucky.